Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. Today is March 16th and this is my weekly shop update. Now if you missed my update last week, I had announced that I'm doing this full time now. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who left such great and amazing heartfelt comments last week, and to everyone who's already gone over to my support page and has shown me support that way. I really appreciate that as well. Been a lot of amazing support so far this last week. I really appreciate everything from everyone, regardless of what you were able to do. But I really appreciate all of the people that just came out of nowhere just showing their support for what I'm doing. So thank you so much, everyone. So I'd also like to say a few thank yous this week for some things that I received. Sarah from Slovana Farm, she sent me a couple of bonnets that she made herself. She sent me a couple of bonnets for my upcoming baby. I got a blue one and a pink one. So that was awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. If you haven't checked out her channel, I'll leave a link to that in the description. Her and her husband do, I guess you could call it homesteading type videos, but they do a lot of like tree salvaging for lumber as well. So that's always fun to watch. And they're building a new shop for the woodworking, so they're putting in power lines, and it's always interesting to see what they're up to. So I'll leave a link in the description to their channel if you want to check that out. The other thing I got here is from my buddy Neil. Neil lives actually just not too far away from me, probably like 5 minutes away. And he stopped by a couple weeks ago and I gave him some scrap lumber to use for turning. And he told me that he was going to bring some of that back to me in a different form. And this is what he made me. A little baby rattle. Check it out. And it's dovetailed. So this was his first dovetailed project. He dovetailed it together and he turned it on the lathe. But really awesome. Thank you, Neil. It's always great hanging out with Neil too. So thanks for stopping by, Neil. So what's going on in the shop this week? Well, I showed last week the rough turn bowls that I was working on. I still have to finish the bottoms of these bowls, but the I guess the inside and the outside are all turned to their final size and shape and all that stuff, and they're finished. This one is butternut. That turned out really nice. Well, bottom's kind of boring so far, but I love the grain of this one. It just has some really cool waviness to it. I thought that's really neat. And then the other three are birch. These two are, pretty standard, kind of plainish, like sort of plain, but they got some speckling going on there. It's a little smaller one. This one here is spalted, a little spalted birch bowl. And this has quite a different look than the other ones. You kind of see that together. So there's some really cool color going on in this one, and I really like that. I have a bunch more of these bowls to turn to. I got a whole bunch of blanks like these. But these turned out really cool. And again, these are going to be donated to the Habitat for Humanity's Spring Gala fundraiser here in April. So if you live in Minneapolis and you're going to that gala, you might see my items there at the silent auction. So this week I got a few things done on the secretary. So the first thing I started working on in the beginning of the week was applying the bonnet tops to the secretary. So I know in the past I was kind of going back and forth with the method I was going to use to do it, and I ended up using some really thin solid wood panels, and I sprayed water on opposite faces in different on the top and the bottom, and that caused the panel to actually curve and bend to the shape that I want to be conformed to. And then all I have to do is really just stick it down to the scroll board and the backer with some glue, and I used masking tape along the back, and then I brad nailed it along the front in front of the moldings. And the moldings they're set so they're higher than the scroll board, so you actually be able to, or so the nail heads will actually be hidden as you're looking up at it, because there's a step there. So that little bit in the front there is going to be hidden, and it's not going to be a problem. Now that went on really well. It was really easy, and I was actually surprised how easy it was to do. That spraying that water on there really helped it to just conform to that shape. And then once the glue dried, it was really just locked in place. And now it's like a drum. That's pretty much as closest thing as I can compare it to. It's kind of drum-like. Alright, so let me back this camera up a little bit so you can see a little wider shot. That's my face. There we go. All right, so the other thing that I worked on next, or the thing that I worked on next, were the urns. I did 3 of them, and I'll just pull this one down so you can take a look at it. Really simple, just spindle turnings. And the ones on the corners sit on these little blocks, and then all this kind of goes together. You got the block with the hole in it, and this will get glued to the case. And then you have this transition block dealy thingy that's rounded over on all the sides. That sits on top of the post. And then here is the urn itself, with just a little tenon turn on the bottom. And that kind of locks everything together. But these urns were, I haven't done much spindle turning, so these were probably like my 4th or 5th. No, I did 6th. This is my 6th spindle turning in my whole life. Number 6, number 7, number 8. And they took me a while because I wanted them to look really nice and not have any tear out or any kind of imperfections in them. So I spent a lot of time turning them, getting that profile nice and perfect, and then sanding them quite a bit to make sure that they were just nice and smooth and ready to go. And overall, they turned out really nicely. Now the thing that is not perfect about them is they're not all the same. I'm not that great of a duplicator, I found out, which is fine because they're not next to each other, so you don't really see them close enough together where you can discern the differences in the profile and the shaping. But I think that just makes it kind of more unique because they're all different, they're all handmade, they're all slightly different, but I don't know, I'm happy with them. I think they turned out quite nice. And then the one thing I was working on today was one of the actual finials. And the finial is this guy right here. Kind of like an ice cream cone. Bet there was free ice cream cones at Dairy Queen today. Hope everyone went out and got their free ice cream. So the top of the urn has a hole, and then the bottom of the finial has a little tenon on it, and that just mates right in there. I made these different than the plans in the book call for. I made this twice as curvy. Honestly, I was just kind of playing around with the idea of it. I thought to myself, well, I wonder what it looked like this, more spirally. And I figured I would screw up the first one so it wouldn't be that big of a deal if it didn't work out. But I really liked the way that it turned out, and it worked out just fine. So didn't screw it up, and it came out just fine. And this was actually, the process to make this was really simple. It's just, it takes a lot of patience. I'll have a video about making both the urns and the finials probably this week, I would assume. Since I'm done with these ones, so I have all the footage to make the video about it. But these are laid out on a turned cylinder that's on the lathe. They're lay out the spirals. A saw cut is made to establish the depth of each of the bottoms of the valleys here. And then you carve and file to get the little U shape in there. And then towards the top here, you just kind of make them all kind of come together into one sort of point there. And the other thing that I learned as I was doing this, and I kind of figured it would be this way, but these are really fragile, so I ended up breaking them off a few times. You can see I have like some spots of CA glue where I just glued the pieces back on, and those will finish out nicely when I sand them. But this took me 3 hours to make one finial. So assuming I can get that process sped up at least a little bit, I have at least probably another 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours just to make another 2 finials. And then it's almost done. The only thing left besides those 2 finials are the backboards. So let's talk about that for a second. Yesterday I posted a picture on Facebook of both orientations, and I asked you what you thought the best orientation was. And the majority said vertical, which I kind of figured from the comments on last week's shop update. So I had over 160 comments, or 160 votes of which direction to go. And I had vertical, I had horizontal, I had herringbone, and I had diagonal. And Kevin actually took the time to put together a diagonal mock-up, which I thought was hilarious. I also had a comment from Art. If you haven't checked out his channel, leave a link to his channel in the description as well. That's Words and Wood. But he thought maybe a narrower horizontal or narrower vertical backboards would be nice. And I kind of agree, but disagree at the same time. The boards that were shown in the pictures, they still need to be shiplapped and edge jointed and all that, so they're going to lose some width anyway. So they're going to be a little bit narrower, but I'm going to go vertical. And the other reason why I'm going to go vertical, not just because of the majority of the people who said vertical, was because my wife said vertical. So we'll be doing the vertical alignment of the backboards. All right, so the last thing today, I have been getting a lot of questions about wood movement and can I show wood movement a little more. A couple of things. Last year I did a shop update. It was in July. I'll leave a link down below to that update where I actually show an example of wood movement with my secretary desk lid. It moved from the time I built it last April to that time in July. It had moved like a 16th or 3/32 of an inch or so. But I am going to do a little experiment here for you. So I got the question last week from Rogmach, and he asked if I could do some kind of like demo or example of it. So this is going to be an ongoing thing that we're going to revisit. We'll call the recurring wood size segment. So this board here, it is 10 3/4 inches wide, and it is March right now. So in, I think, August, I'll bring this back out again and we'll see how much bigger it's going to be. And I also cut a piece of melamine, which is not going to move, to exactly the same width as this board. So we'll be able to actually see the difference between this board and a fixed control piece. So that's going to be a fun little experiment. Keep that sitting up here in the shop and we'll see how it is in August. Now that's another great thing you can do in your own shop if you want to keep an eye on wood movement throughout the seasons. I've heard a lot of people do that as well. They hang up a board of different species of a fixed width and they write down on the board when it was cut to that width, so then they can always reference back and see if I cut this board in if I cut a board to like a foot wide in August, it's you know, it's, what is it now? It's March right now. What size is that now? What size is that board now? So if you're making a drawer, for instance, you know how much space to allocate for that wood to expand and contract throughout the seasons. So I think that's about all I have for this week. I am going to be doing, hopefully, if the weather holds up, which I think it will be, Friday will be a sawmill day, so I'll be out at the sawmill with my friend Jim, cutting up all the logs that we pulled out of the woods over the last, it's probably been almost a year since we had a sawmill day. So we have a sawyer with a portable bandsaw mill come in. He has an LT40, a wood miser. He comes in for the day and he mills up all the logs that we have pulled out of the woods, and we got a whole stack of lumber out of it. So that's gonna be a fun day. I wish there was internet out there at that farm because I would love to be just live streaming that all day, but maybe someday I'll get some kind of like data plan thing for doing that. But anyway, thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today or anything here in my shop, please feel free to leave me a comment or send me an email if you'd like. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.